I feel like there's this fancy, gleaming surface layer thing where you look at entrepreneurship from an outside perspective, like, oh my gosh, it's so lovely, isn't it? It's just so romantic. And anybody who's actually done any level of entrepreneurship, one business, two, or 10, no, it's not. It's like dirty back alley fighting.
Welcome to Confessions of an Implementer. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and challenges of the system in action. Let's jump in.
I don't even know where to start. Your journey from entrepreneurship and founders and co-founders and managing partners, like it is an endless journey. And so, like, where do you want to start in this journey?
Well, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted because when I hear confessions, I think of either confessions of an economic hitman, or I think of confessions with some kind of Catholic overtone. So I'm just a little, nervous of what I'm getting myself into. Like, how deep are we going to go here, Ryan? So with that preface, I mean, we're probably going to talk about EOS at some point. So maybe how we all got here could be a reasonable starting point.
Yeah, why don't we start there? I mean, I think what's interesting. I'm assuming there's going to be some assumptions. I'm assuming like you discovered EOS as a part of some of this other journey. That was me. EOS changed my life. It was probably 2017. My first company had went bankrupt. The second company kind of took off. And between EOS and Vistage, those were kind of two life-changing things. Like, what have you learned through this incredible entrepreneurial journey? And when I think of confessions, I like to think about like, what are some things that you got wrong? And like sort of the confession and like, what was that nugget? What was that thing that you did differently from that point forward?
I tell myself that I wish that I found EOS 15, 20 years ago before I made all the mistakes myself. But I don't know that I would have been in a ripe place to listen to anybody else but myself. In my 20s, I was, quintessential startup guy, just hustling in my 20s and early 30s and starting businesses. And like I say, I blew up 7 businesses in that time period, 4 in a bad way and 3 in a good way. And the only reason that I had any success is because I kind of got lucky. I figured out to do things I actually care about and focus on one thing at a time, which was incomprehensible to me my first 5-6 years. So skip ahead. I discovered EOS through my wife. She's a fractional CFO, and half of her clients were running on this system and half were not. And she flew out to some full day session in Kentucky and came back, told me to read a book. And I was like, oh, awesome. This would have been great to know many years before.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way that you kind of framed the beginning of that, of like, as much as you would have wanted to discover EOS maybe earlier on in life, it's like maybe it wouldn't have been applicable. Maybe you would have been like in a mind frame where like I know better, and that's interesting because like I was probably in that similar spot of like I don't need other people to tell me what to do. I don't need a framework. Like I can figure this out on my own. Was there like a moment where that, and I'll give you my moment, was like bankruptcy. And like, not only was it the business that went bankrupt, it was like the business took me under. Was there a moment where, whether it was ego or overconfidence or like I can figure this out on my own, where that just kind of went out the window?
Yeah. I mean, something jumps out at least. I mean, I got punched in the mouth multiple times and fell down. I had to get back up. But I remember I was in a business. So it was In-State Angels was one of my companies. We helped kids get in-state tuition in any state and bootstrapped it to a dozen employees. Um, before I raised multiple rounds of investment, scaled it to 30 states, and first phase of it was really fantastic and great when we were more localized. And phase 2 was kind of like, let's bet it all. let's try to do it even bigger and let's scale it to the next level. And we just couldn't figure it out. And after a year or two of scraping and clawing and like kind of hating myself in retrospect, I would get up and I would be active, not productive, and I would just put in these long hours. What was I even doing? And like I had all these stories that I was telling myself, like, my employees will hate me. My clients will hate me. I can't stop this. I must force this. And my invest, I'll ruin my name and my credibility in this. And this is at the time when I met my wife, I think before we were married quite. And she's like, Jake, you're killing yourself. You're miserable. Like, what are you doing? Are you going to keep? How many more years are you going to keep trying to force this thing where it just doesn't feel like it's catching at that for this level? And the moment that I allowed myself to even let that thought enter my brain that you don't have to do this, that's mixed with so much like failure and fear and like this talk track of like, no, you must, this ego thing. And like the moment I let that in and sat with it, I changed behavior, and I said like, hey guys, this is what's happening. I don't think it's going to work, and we're cutting our losses, and this is what we're doing for phase 2 of this business. There it is. What do you think? And to my surprise, everybody in my entire world was like, yeah, that makes sense. Hell of an effort. Really good try. My employees were, yeah, we really gave it our all. My investors, I got messages from a couple of them that was, whatever you're doing next, sign me up. I want in for the next thing. Like, it takes a lot of grace to wind down a business. And I didn't lose any friends. It was this, like, I was just telling myself, lies. And after that, I ended up taking a 6-month sabbatical. Went to Colombia for six or 8 weeks with my future wife, Trinity, and cleared my head. And gosh, like I could have told myself that same story for the rest of my life. Is it a long enough response for you?
No, it is, and I think it's going to take us down an interesting path. Like one of the kind of talk tracks I'd like to stay on for this is this idea of like scaling enterprises and raising money and things like that. Because what's interesting is it sounds like things were growing and doing great. You had some sort of hypothesis and had found some form of like product market fit, and then you tried to take it to the next level. Like what were some things that you were seeing where like maybe it didn't scale as neatly as you thought, maybe it was more complex? Like what were some things that you started seeing as like, hey, you've got something and it's working and it's great, and then like as you go to the next level, it's like, oh shit, like miscalculated X?
Well, maybe we could have figured out the product market fit on the larger scale. If I look back now, I mean, with hindsight, I realized that it was just me. And there was like, there's this, the words arrogance and hubris just come up in my mind as like, as I look back and kind of judge my younger self. And it was all on me. It was like, I didn't have a team. I didn't have a leadership team really. I had some department leaders, but it was a team of one. And how much can you figure out by yourself? Ultimately, it turns out, but I reached my limit, and that was it. So I do wonder back, like thinking back, like had I had a really strong team around me, wouldn't have taken some outside perspective, like a friend or a loved one, to say, "Hey, Jake, like you don't see this blind spot. Like, what if I had those people in my business?"
Did you wound up hiring like people that were close to you, whether it's friends or family, or did you at least have like some arm's distance from someone?
Well, previously I did all kinds of businesses with my friends, and it turns out that, well, I don't, hopefully they're listening. Remember how I did all the work, guys? Remember how I did everything? That's what it felt like, anyway. So there wasn't like an equal distribution of effort. I felt like, so then I got to this place where I wasn't really trusting of other people. So it's just, you learn something and then you overcorrect, and then you learn something and then you overcorrect.
Yeah. It's like cyclic, man. That's exactly right. My first company that went bankrupt, like a big part of that was because I hired all my best friends, and like they're great people. They're amazing human beings. It doesn't mean that they know how to scale an enterprise, or how to lead or how to manage, or there's some tough lessons learned.
I so appreciate your willingness to just be forthright with like, hey, I went bankrupt sometime. I feel like there's this fancy, gleaming surface layer thing where you look at entrepreneurship from an outside perspective, like, oh my gosh, it's so lovely, isn't it? It's just so romantic. And anybody who's actually done any level of entrepreneurship, one business, two or 10, no, it's not. It's like dirty back alley fighting. Like,
Yeah. You've you've got to love the process. Like you can chase money, you can chase passion, like you can find like some of the core reasons that you're doing it. But if you don't enjoy the actual process of building, I just don't think you'll make it. Because the whole thing that at least that I found with entrepreneurship is like you will make it. Whatever you're set out to accomplish, like you can accomplish those things. It's just you can't predict the timing because the hard work and a little bit of luck and a little bit of all of these different things have to come together. And to me, your odds improve over time because you're collecting experience, building a network, understanding frameworks and how to operate a business. But it doesn't mean like you won't get lucky in your 20s or like figure it out in your 60s. But the thing is, like, if you don't deeply love the process and like can't accept the like don't have a high risk tolerance, because like my last company could have bankrupted. Like we were very close. Like basically that whole 7 years, it's great to say, hey, we did $205 million over 7 years. We grew from 0 to 55 million in 6 years. Like those are really cool things to say. What like people don't see is like every single week we were trying to figure out how to make payroll. Every single week we were like, how are we going to fulfill this purchase order? So anyhow, that's a little bit of a tangent, but
I appreciate the odds. Like my takeaway from my entrepreneurial journey of 7 businesses over 15 years was this. I mean, luck. Like I remember I listened to what is it? How I Built This, something podcast,
yeah, Guy Ross, yeah.
and I mostly don't like it because at the end, so many people are like, he always asks how much was luck part of the outcome, and some of the guests are like, I worked really hard and I deserve it, and I have a noble blood in my veins. Like, I'm like, no, man, there's so much. Like, please, like, luck and connections, who you know. Like I heard that growing up all the time. It's not what you do, it's who you know, kind of thing. I was like, yeah, whatever. But I got a really great idea. Business ideas are worth nothing. They're worth nothing. Like, oh, you have a pitch deck, awesome, great. How are you going to execute that? Who are you to do anything like that? What if something bad happens and not the regulation level? How are you going to go over that? Who do you know? So if only I knew, I would have done the exact same thing.
I did. That's the other. That's why what you were talking about earlier, like, resonates so deep. Because I don't know if I would have implemented it. Like, I'm the kind of guy. Like, I've got to learn through some sort of experience, and then and then I'll actually start listening or paying attention. But like in it was probably like 25 when Run for Your Lives took off, and it was a zombie infested 5K obstacle course race, and like everything was going great, and it was scaling, and I was like, it's all because of me. No, like sometimes you just hit the right market at the right time, and things take off, and it's like, what are you going to do next that decide kind of the fate of the business? And we didn't do the right things, which was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, what I still struggle with is this idea that like your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. Like there's another side of every coin, sort of thing. So it takes that type of, maybe it does take a little arrogance. It takes some stubbornness to be the person that's going to even try to do anything, right? But it's also, so that's at its best. But at its worst, you don't listen to the thing that would help you. So like separating the signal versus the noise, I don't know the answer to it honestly. I just know that it's really complicated.
It's so interesting you said that, because the kind of the strength versus the weakness. I forget who I was talking to. This probably a couple months ago, but they talked about this idea of good ego, and I had never looked at it like that. Maybe I just haven't spent enough time like looking at ego or studying ego and things like that. But we hear too often that like ego. I mean, there's a book called "Ego is the Enemy." I think it's Ryan Holiday. So like, there's this notion that like ego is a bad thing. But to your point, like,
There's probably another book that's like ego is your best friend. There's a book for everything, and there's an internet article for it too. So, but sorry.
yeah, someone's got a blog post. I 100% agree. And to your point though, like you can't do. Elon came out last year, and he was like, "Oh, did you expect I could do all these things and I was like a normal person?" Like you cannot be a normal person and like do those sorts of things. And there has to be, even if a little bit of like ego, bravado, confidence to believe in yourself enough to go do these ridiculous things.
So from that, I'm a little jaded and cynical about the whole startup world, being part of the Boulder startup scene for many years and going to lots of events. Like I gotta admit, I'm confession time. I'm just tired when somebody proposes to do their first business. As much as I'm like rooting, oh yeah, go do it. It's like, okay, you just had a wedding and now you're gonna make an app about something with, and it's just like, what? Really? You know how many times I've heard that pitch? Like 30,000 times. So I'm to a point now where I work. I have respect for the people who started awesome, but if you don't make it through a couple existential crises, like I don't know that EOS is the right thing for you. And I keep learning this lesson over and over again. Like there's this kind of client profile for what will work with EOS, and every time I've strayed from it, it's kind of the same story. It just, those are the times where it doesn't quite work. Like you get something out of it, but it's not the thing. So
What is kind of that profile, or where in that profile have you deviated a little bit and it's been like not not it?
well, I've got a few examples that come top of my head. So first one is not being in a team, a leadership team, and you don't know it yet, maybe. But I remember working with we had our first day together, a full day session, and it was kind of took forever to like kind of get it on the schedule. And it turns out that there were three senior people who actually made decisions, and then there were like three or four or five more junior people. And we had the full day session. We did the whole thing, and at the end of it, the visionary is I heard this later, like the next day. It's like, oh, EOS it's really cute, and you guys should totally do it. I'm not going to do it, but you guys should all do it. Like, nope. That's not how it's gonna work here. Like if you're not fully bought in, then we're just wasting our time. So like that was the end of that relationship. So having a team is one. A lot of times cash flow is one of them. Like EOS is a little bit more about optimizing your business. If you are still totally figuring it out, I don't know that you're ready. Like go read traction, go do a VTO by yourself. I wish I would have done that. Would have helped me not do a few businesses. But you really have to be past some existential crises, like where you almost lost it, and then you broke through a ceiling. Because you'll say like, oh well, Jake costs money. I'm not going to pay this guy money. Like I could buy more marketing. And a lot of times, if you're under $1 million in revenue, I would say don't spend money on me. Like go put it in marketing. And then the third one that I see is an unwillingness to change. They're doing it for appearances. They want their board to see that they're taking it really seriously. They have like an investor or something. They're placating the team and they're pretending that we're doing it together. And it's back to that first kind of lack of team. Yeah.
When I think about like the books and like the phases in which you read books. So for me, for instance, like pre-product market fit, I'm all about the lean startup. Because like you don't necessarily need to know how to run a business. All you need to know is like how fast can I find like something that has enough value that somebody will bring money out. And then it's like once you've kind of refined that, you found product market fit, and like you now have a market to sell your product or service, like then and only then do you have to start worrying about things outside of bringing in cash. You have to worry about systems and frameworks and worrying about like what cash is coming in, what cash is going out. Um, you spoke a little bit about this being jaded, and it's interesting. Like even for me, like I've been hearing a lot of like different ideas lately, and like I'm kind of in your camp, which is like it's been done before, or like it's this or it's that, and like it really comes down to the entrepreneur. And to me, it's like if the entrepreneur hasn't experienced like adversity and like real adversity, where like they've built resilience, because you're betting on the entrepreneur at that point. So like you're betting on their ability to be able to pivot and iterate fast enough to stay ahead of the market, stay ahead of the competitors, and like truly scale an organization. Um, this is a hot take, but like most 20-year-olds don't have that yet. Um, that's why I saw last week, it was like the average age of unicorn founders right now is like 43 years old. Go
Oh, is that
Jake, go
right?
Ryan. Yeah. Yeah.
Next year, let's start our new unicorn, right? Yeah.
That's it, man. But like they've accumulated experience. And I think like you and I either become jaded or to a certain extent influenced that like this is a young man's or young woman's game. And it's not. But like for some reason that's the perception.
Well, yeah, yeah. There's a like a positivity bias though with all the entrepreneurship stuff, where you just see the lotto winners who I did this and I didn't do anything, and then look, I made $1 billion. Oh, I'm great. You don't see the 900 failures broadcast, like, hey, I went bankrupt. Like, I don't see that post. Like, from you, Ryan, I bet you have that post.
Yeah. I'll share it with you outside of this. I'll tag it in our post. But like, and that's kind of the purpose of this podcast too, right? It's because like I feel like all people see is the like, look at this person or look at this company, and they don't see like really what it takes. And I think all too often, not that this is like information for people to take and not get involved in entrepreneurship, but I do think that like entrepreneurship takes a certain human being. And like if you don't understand what you're getting into, and very rarely do I think like somebody can change like that part of themselves to be able to take that much pain, because they want, like, they either have it or they don't. And maybe that's a hot take. And one of the things with this is like getting enough exposure out there for people to understand the road that they're going down, and not to discourage, but just so like there's eyes wide open of like it's going to be painful.
Well, there's a little bit of like an arm length relationship I have with, I don't really rub elbows with all the young or old whatever entrepreneurs that are just trying it for their first time. I kind of selection bias. I kind of wait for the ones that are at least a million or 2 million or 3 million in revenue, and those are the people that I end up talking to and working with, because necessarily they've gotten through some hurdles. They probably have a team around them. Then the fun part happens. We say, great, let's grow up a little bit. Let's make this a little bit more sophisticated. Like, you were just winging it and shoot from the hip. That's awesome. Like, there's art and there's science. What if we do? Let's just throw a little bit of science in there and see what happens.
And the In-State Angels wasn't your first nor last company or entrepreneurship. So what happened after In-State?
Yeah, so I mean, the first businesses I did, kind of funny. It was like, I'm importing scooters from China, and I had no way to. We didn't know how to sell it, and so I spent months talking to all these factories in China, and we got all these college focus, like telescopes, and it was like bikes and scooters, and with this big container full of stuff, and we're like, what do we do now? Like a garage sale on the hill, and maybe made our money back, sort of thing. What are we doing? And like smoothie shops and bike sharing endeavor, and just like, yes. And I think it is cool. Like, go mess it up in your 20s. And but yeah, remember I started focusing, so I had success in iPhone apps, caught a wave there, and real estate, and In-State Angels.
Like that stuff doesn't just kind of go away. Like, where today you are an EOS implementer, which you're doing the Lord's work over there, because it's like you're changing people's lives every day. And so, like, I guess what's your vision? Where are you? What are you up to?
Well, I guess here's what I tell myself. I think it's true. I keep saying it out loud and seeing if it resonates still. But I really hate poorly run businesses. So the thought of being able to help a business be successful one at a time kind of lights me up, right? Because it's not just the leadership team. Like, there's some conference room of people. Like, that's not it. Like, look at all the employees in that company. Look at all the spouses and family of all those employees. Look at all of your clients who have either have a positive experience or a negative experience. Like, theoretically, I could be touching 10,000 souls if I'm working with a company, just to make it a little bit better, 5% better, 10% better, 15% better. That feels nice. Because how many businesses have you dealt with like recently where you're like pulling your hair out? Like, what are we doing? This is so inhuman. So maybe I'm a force of good in the entrepreneurial world. This is what I tell myself.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I had long conversations with myself of like, what's kind of next after Talent Harbor. And again, like Visage and EOS were such big impacts that it was definitely a path.
It is unbelievable how many people are getting away with it. Like, I look behind the curtain of all these companies. Maybe it's not surprising to you, but a lot of companies are not that well run. Like, whoa, spoiler, like they figured it out somehow. Like, there had to be a survivor, and that's them. And there's a lot of good qualities in there, but there's just so many low hanging fruit opportunities to just be a little better.
I think about that all the time. Actually, I was just talking to my business chair last week about it, because we've been on the hunt to acquire companies, and we've been looking at a few. And what's really interesting is like there are some companies out there that it's like, in spite of their best efforts, they are successful. And it's like you look at like how they're operating, you're like, how is this even happening? And like to a certain extent, it's also made me think about, you know, based upon the military and some of the other things that I've been through, I'm like, you know, I'd like to think that I run well-oiled machines, or at least like respectable organizations. Then I walk in others, and I'm like, man, like all the failure I've had, all these like different things, and like this company is like thriving right now and doesn't even know what they're doing. It's a really interesting witness.
I think that the word that jumps out to me is there's something about intentionality, about purpose. I think that it's just happening to a lot of businesses, and they've just gotten into habits and routines, and it happens to be working for them. But I like to be this force of, let's have business on purpose instead of on accident. What would that look like if you chose? Like you're not a victim here. Like what do you want to do with this business? And talking to founders and owners, and like, what the hell? What do you want out of this? And sometimes it's, I am so burnt out. Help. I want to sell it for anything. Like, please help, help, help. And I've worked with people like that. And, a good outcome of that is I worked with somebody like that over a year. And I was like, hey man, what do you think now? Do you still want to sell the business? And after working together for a year, it's like, why would I want to do that? This is great. I'm profitable. We're making money. I've got a team now. It's not just me on my shoulders. Awesome.
Yeah. I I hear that. I hear that quite a bit. It's like, why would I ever sell? I'm sitting in a visionary seat doing what I love and making money. Um, what you just said something really interesting, that this whole idea of like business on purpose or the intentionality. Like, what's kind of that first thing if you walk into an organization, you're like, holy crap, like what's going on here? Like, how do you help them like understand intentionality, or like what is business on purpose?
So I think half of what I do is EOS, and I like EOS. I'm biased. That's the chosen methodology that I prefer, that I like. But the other half of the value that I think that I bring is having the hard conversations that they're not going to have without me. So like honestly, a big value add of working with a company like doing EOS is getting them in a room, having them clear their schedule, and just having a space and a safe place to say, hey, take a breath, guys. Whew. We're going to work on the business all day today. And there's some stuff that you're not willing to say yet. You're scared. You'll say a lot and you'll be pretty honest, but like I bet there's like this next level of stuff that you're just not quite ready to get there. And we don't have to get there today. But what if in the next 1 or 2 or 3 times that we see each other, we just get a little bit closer to that? And the moment we can really say what we really think out loud, it's going to be okay. That's my business thesis. Been doing this for like 4 or 5 years now. All I do is EOS implementation, right? That's how I spend my professional life, and it's worked out so far. Not 100% and no guarantees, but that's my approach.
All right, quick break, friends. Do you find it impossible to hire and retain top sales talent? Or worse, are you paying insane recruiter fees who are all using outdated hiring processes? Yeah, I was too. At Hunt to Killer, we were spending hundreds of thousands on recruiter agency fees. And after I sold that company in 2025, I started Talent Harbor. And the whole vision here was to make sales recruiting accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, because the organizations that can hire and retain world-class people are the ones that ultimately win. Most organizations rely on things like ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn, and they get hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. But we find that the best salespeople are already perfectly placed somewhere else. And that's why our approach is to go after them. And we do that through a business model called recruiting as a service. We do not charge commissions. We do not have success fees. We don't have contracts. We don't have long-term engagements. And we become an extension of your team as expert sales recruiters. If you're tired of the same old recruiters and want to actually grow your sales team, check us out at talentharbor.com. That's Talent Harbor, TalentHarbor.com. Let's get your next sales superstar hired.
What is that moment? Is there something that you like see where it's like, oh crap, it's working. Like we are now having those conversations. Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's the obvious thing that anybody who walked in who watched a team dynamic for 5 minutes, whatever that person would have seen, they all know it. As soon as somebody just broaches that thing, and then I'm sitting there like, oh, really? Well, earth shattering. Really? That person's not the right that one? Crazy. But they said it and they start talking about it. And it doesn't have to be personal either. Like sometimes it's just the person is in the wrong seat. It's like, hey, I've seen founders who want to be visionaries thrust into being the primary fundraiser, and they're just blowing their brains. I hate it. That's the last thing they want to do in the world. And it's just saying like, what if you didn't do that? What if we got a new CEO in here that loved that and that was their skill set? And they're like, oh, that was an option?
What are there ways like when you're thinking about
just thinking like sometimes it goes wrong, but like we'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Well, here, let's go there now. Like where can it go wrong?
Oh, I just remember working with I have success stories too. I promise. I'm poking on the confession part of like, the times where it didn't go right. Well, actually, it did go right. I'm gonna tell you the story. So, working with the company, they've been doing EOS themselves for years, right? And they want to bring in a professional. They want to have like one really good day together. They fly a bunch of people out to Colorado to like an Airbnb, and we're having this session. And they think that their EOS game is really tight, like really strong, really good. And we start with basics of the accountability chart. Who does what here? Like, what do you do and what do you not do? And it's like half the day, right? And there's like 7 people in the room, and for every single position that like we do the seats first, structure first, people second. This is the structure. And I'm like, okay, marketing seat. Who might be good at marketing? Every hand goes up. Like, what? Sales seat. Who would be? Every hand goes up. Like, what? Every seat is like that. They're just throwing their hat in the ring for every single thing. Like, I want the judgment. Like, tell me if I'd be good at this or not. Skip ahead. One of the guys doesn't have a seat, right? So like, oh, so and so, I noticed that like looks like you don't have a seat on the leadership team. I work with the leadership team usually. What do we do? And it's like elephant in the room. We're entering the danger room. We're just saying, calling a spade. And this guy has he freaks out. Like he's yelling, he's cursing, he's super upset. He's accusing people. This is bullshit. Am I allowed to curse on this program? Maybe not.
Yes, of course.
Oh, good. And he ends up walking out of the room. He gets in his rental Jeep, and we don't know. Like, oh, he'll be back in a little bit. He's just rolling off some steam. He went to the airport, and he flew away without a word. I think he left his stuff there, too. And then, they're yelling at each other that night. Like, where'd you go? The next day, we did 2 days. We come back and we say, you know what? I think we should tweak this accountability chart. We really need this person to be on the leadership. Oh, wait. He left. Like, if he would have just hung on for a day, he would have come back to his position on the leadership team. But it's also reflective of like he just wasn't with the greater good of the company in mind. I don't think he was a core values fit. And that came out. So is that a good outcome or a bad outcome? I don't know. It's a pretty aggressive outcome, isn't it?
It is. It's pretty aggressive. I was going to share a story. It's not nearly as like that was a really good one. Because you were like, yeah, the team flew in, they knew what they were doing, and then it just kept getting worse and worse. And that was our story. So like we had Dan Wallace was the one that came out to Seattle, did for my for my Vistage group, like 2018, 19, 17 maybe. And then we self-implemented for a couple of years, and then we actually got Margaret Dixon, who I'm sure you're familiar with because she's right
fantastic.
in your backyard.
Good Boulder, love her. Yeah.
Yep. And she like we all flew into Boulder because we were headquartered in Baltimore and we had offices in Seattle. I was living in Seattle, so we flew in to meet her. And the first day, she was like, we were like, we've been self-implementing for years. And like first day, we sit down. She's like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" But it was the same exact thing.
We're crushing it. We're like perfect. Probably your best client. Like, I don't even need you. Like,
yeah, that's
you shattered your reality. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly it.
How did you take that? Like, were people able to stomach that, or was there defensiveness?
Yeah, I definitely defensiveness. Like I think what we really struggled with at Hunt to Killer was like my old vistage chair used to talk about this idea of like when you have your leadership team, you try and get everybody on the same side of the table looking at the same problem. Because all too often what happens is you've got a problem, the problem's in the middle of the table, and everybody's sitting around a circular table and they're fighting about the problem. And you got to get everybody on the same side to understand like that problem is not anybody's problem, like specific problem. It is the company's problem. We have to resolve it together. And I think we struggle to do that. Like, all too often the company um, thrived or died on paid advertising. So, like when paid advertising wasn't optimized or ideal, or customer acquisition cost was increasing, that was a marketing problem. Wasn't a product problem. Wasn't an operations problem. Everybody's like, "Hey, we're doing our job. Get CAC down so we can continue growing this thing."
There's some element of truth to that, right? Like an element at least, but
Yeah. Yep. And I think that was probably our biggest issue was like how do we get everybody like it later became much different things like rowing in the same direction. We had some leaders that were like, I don't know, like on hole 9 while we're teeing off on hole 1. We're like, hey, we're over here. Um, but I would say that was one of the hardest things for us.
yeah, I mean, it feels like this really simple idea, but what if we got together every quarter and we had those hard conversations, guys, and got aligned as we could, and we went in that direction for 90 days? And like that's as simple as EOS is in a way. I mean, there's more to it, and nuance and such, but like nobody's doing that. Your competitors aren't doing that. As popular as EOS has become, I mean, tens of thousands of companies working with an implementer kind of thing. There's millions of companies in America who are not, and then globally. Um, I think it's a competitive advantage.
I agree. And what, like, when you talk about these hard conversations, you talked about kind of some of the breakthroughs, some of the funny breakthroughs too. Like, what are some of your methods? Like, how do you? It sounds like you now have a way which you can identify when that magic moment is happening, and it's like, all right, we're here. How do you help companies get to that moment where they're now comfortable being like, you know, hey, Rob, I think in certain respects, like you're not you might not be the right person, or whatever that conversation might be.
It's a pretty flowy thing, right? Like, how does a poet make a great poem? How does an artist paint a great mural? Uh, all because all the greatest artists painted murals. Some things that jump out to me are it's really fun for me. The confrontation. Uh, Maybe that's like a sociopathic kind of thing to say, but when all those people are in there, I'm like eating popcorn, watching the show, and I'm really excited. But sometimes I'll get scared, where I'm like, as an audience member to their conversation, sometimes I'll say, "Ooh, that could be. Ooh, if we said any more about that, that could be." And then I'll poke the bear, uh, and then there's also I think that there's like an invitation, right? Like, hey, we're here to say what we really think. Okay, so just invitation to do that. I know it's scary. Like I'm your training wheels. I'm your crutch. It's cool. Like we can go there. There is no way companies go there without a third party. I don't think, unless they're really spiritually enlightened.
I agree with like this whole notion of graduating, and I get it. I get it. Like, a couple years with an implementer, and you can be trained up and understanding how to navigate. The one thing that's irreplaceable is that third party perspective. Like we never were able to have the conversations that we needed to have without a third party in the room. And whether it's like someone understanding the dynamics of the team, or like you just said, like it's almost like a coach, right? Like someone that's willing to push you and continue pushing you. Um, we never graduated, and that's because there is so much value that comes from like having I don't know, having an unbiased party in the room to be able to call out the bullcrap.
And that's not the necessary outcome of it. Like I'm looking to work with companies for about 2 years, and maybe you need somebody for 2 years, and maybe you just want somebody after that, or not. So like that's all right. Um, I had another thought, like talking about method, is I get bored really easily, and the moment I get bored, I I feel like if I'm bored, somebody else is bored. So I try not to have that. So I move it along, and gosh, as I'm talking about it, it's like a really selfish expression, isn't it? Of creativity.
All the great artists were.
Artists. I'm an EOS artist now. Yeah. See how much I've grown into my humility. Can you imagine me as a 22-year-old? It would have been
um but there's a flip side to that. It goes back to your earlier point of like, for all the greats, there's maybe some not so great, but like, even the idea of like wanting to push people into the danger zone, whether it's entertainment or not, like they have to go there. And like being able to like navigate those conversations and push the team to get uncomfortable, like that's where it doesn't matter whether it was the Navy or companies or doing what I'm doing today. It's like it's the uncomfortable moments that are generally the most valuable. um I was cringing when you said that guy walked out and flew back home. I would have been like, oh, like I would just felt so awkward in that moment. But you were probably just back there pushing it.
I was secretly like, that was kind of awesome. Like, I'll tell this story on a nationally syndicated show with like some guy named Ryan in 5 years from now. I know it. It's all building up to this, man. Like,
Your email is can't wait. You even sent me a little countdown clock. I loved it. What are some things that like you see it's hard to say your clients get wrong, because you've talked about this idea of like some can't get out of their own way, some don't have the right leaders on the team, but like are there some common themes as you're onboarding a client that's going to be a great client where you're like, I know we're going to have these issues, and you're trying to kind of get ahead of them?
elaborate on your question a little bit.
I guess like, we've talked a little bit about there's not a team in place, they don't have the cash flow, there's better places to put it. So we've talked about like two or three different ideas where they might not be the a great ICP at this point.
Ideal client or
Yeah. But on the opposite spectrum, where like they are a great client, they're going to be a great client, are there some common themes that you see inside the early days of the session room where you're like, these are some things like we need to get ahead of, and some things that you do to kind of help that team, I don't know, understand the why?
So I guess what jumps out to me is I'm going to start on the not ideal case. Happens with some frequency. I do like to just say it like, hey, it's designed for this. And you're not that exactly. Maybe it's still beneficial for you, but like eyes wide open, if you go into this this is the case, right? And then do what you will. And then every quarter it's like, hey, are we sure? I'll check in, like, are we sure this is what we want to be doing? Is this working? Is this the right stage? But on the other side of the spectrum, where it's somebody who's just like, yes, let's do it. I think the words that come to mind are, it's a team, and there's some humility there, and that's it. Actually, those two characteristics, and yeah, we're gonna do good work together. And the team part, everybody takes as like they just check the box. Like, hey, are you a leadership team? Yes, of course I am. Yeah, check. But then with a little bit of prying, it's like, ooh, I hear that guy talking all the time. So I'll say that kind of stuff. Like, gosh, we've been here for 4 hours. I think that, this guy's talked for like 3 of them. What do we think about that?
I'm assuming what that's, and I guess it depends on who's the one that's talking a lot.
It's the founder. It's the visionary. So that's what I have to guess. Like,
Has that ever backfired on you, or most of the time it's like, all right, now we've cut through and we're off to the races?
backfire how? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen by saying what we all are thinking? That's my approach. So if it leads to like, hey, Jake, you're I want to cuss a lot, and I'm only in session room. Once somebody has broken the seal, will I let out my true sailor here? But they're like, hey, you're being mean, Jake. Get out of here. I guess that's an outcome that might happen. That hasn't happened yet, but it will. I guess I'm intellectually okay with that. At the moment, I'll be crushed, but later I'll reflect and I'll be okay about it.
I like that. I like that because maybe it comes down to delivery or like who you are. I weren't you the class clown? We talked about that in our pre-call.
Yeah, I grew up as a class clown, feasting after the attention of my fellow classmates.
Did you play baseball as well?
Baseball, yep. Football, basketball.
Basically, if it had a ball in it, you were there. All right, class clown. And
I mean, but to be honest, though, I was only great at sports until eighth grade, and then everybody had puberty, and I didn't. So my high school career was not legendary.
so humor replaced the athleticism. Is that?
Oh, that hurts. That cuts me. That realization. I haven't had it yet. You're good at this. You should be an EOS implementer.
Or a podcast host. I like I'm debating between the two. We're gonna figure it out. The other thing was I like to tell people that like I was a really good golfer. Like my grandfather raised me golfing, and so from like 5 years old had a golf club, and like for a 10-year-old I was incredible. I was winning the 3-hole competitions. It was great. And I like to say like I'm still like an incredible golfer for a 10-year-old. So if you put me on the scale, yeah, I'm still really good. I what I was getting at there is like maybe it's your delivery or tone or like your understanding of the situation, how to read it, because like you say something like that to the wrong person that's ego driven, an ego driven founder, ego driven entrepreneur, and they're like, well, of course I'm talking because I've got all the answers. But your ability to deliver something like that and like one, create a reflection moment for that individual, and two, being able to like open the room to the danger zone. I think that's pretty incredible.
I'm not perfect. I'm just pretty well practiced. I used to, moderate roundtables of entrepreneurs for many years with an organization called House of Genius, just for the love of the game. So I kind of got some more moderator chops, and we started in Boulder, and we ended up blowing that up to 30 cities and I think 3 continents over 7 years. And I moderated hundreds of sessions and thousands of entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of practice there, and I made plenty of mistakes, and I still do, honestly.
Yeah. What is House of Genius? That's really interesting. You opened up the Colorado or Boulder chapter.
Yeah, I was one of the founding moderator of it. I moderated the Boulder session. It was like a 3 hours. You get together with a group of strangers. Everybody's from a different background, but you're not allowed to rest on your laurels. So everybody's a stranger to each other. Like you don't say, "Well, I'm Ryan, and I have this awesome podcast, and I had this business." We're like, "Whoa!" So just like wow me with your content during the session and your contributions. Don't rely on your ego stuff. So maintaining those rules, and we'd have presenters, and they'd give a big problem, and you'd have a whole group of folks from different walks of life that would kind of weigh in there and challenge and poke and prod.
Are these any problem? So this
I'm
is
surprised you didn't go to one, honestly.
well, now I'm deeply curious, selfishly. Like I want to know about these things. Is it like entrepreneurial and business wise, or no? It's like
Yeah,
anybody
it
goes.
is.
Okay, I'm gonna check this out. And it's still
It barely exists at this point. Maybe it'll be kicked off again. Like I was part of it for a 7-year period, and kind of stopped doing that to start doing EOS and other stuff.
got it. So this was it sounds like you found a lot of passion, purpose, other things in like hosting and moderating these groups and communities. And then that was like, hey, EOS, I can do this with different companies.
And so many egos in that too. It's like there's some C-level of Comcast that's in the room, and there's some so and so who had some $50 million exit. And there's like a grad student and a therapist and like a psychic. You don't know anybody like what they are. At the end, you do a reveal. It was really fun to figure out who they are.
That's really cool. I'm gonna check this out. What do you look for in a client? And I know we talked a little bit about this as far as like some of the 3 key things you don't look for and the ICP and stuff like that. But like you specifically, like what are you looking for in your clients? Do you focus on a specific like area, industry, size? Like what's kind of your best client?
Yeah, so, some people have niches and they only work in such and such industry, and there's pros and cons to that. I did a little analysis of all my clients after doing this for 5 years, and I was looking for patterns and some kind of insight, like what is the thing. And I realized it's who, not what. I don't care what the people are doing, but the commonality between all the people that I've seen be really successful with EOS and that work with me anyway, there's kind of 2 things I've pulled out. So the who means that you're real, you're willing to be real. And I think you know what that word means. And if you don't know what that word means, then maybe, I'm not your guy. Maybe somebody else is. And then, do you actually want to change? And most people would just automatically autopilot say yes and yes. But with a little prodding, a little prying, is that true? Are you sure? Really? 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 And the people that are willing to play that game with me and then bring in their team and just ask the question like, hey, there's this EOS thing. I don't know a ton about it, but let's learn about it together, like from the earliest stages. Like, so I'm not coming in as like the mercenary of the founder. That doesn't work. Like, oh, here's Jake to come in here and fire a bunch of people. Like, no. Like, let's come together really early. This is EOS. Does it make sense? Do you want to do it? Do you want to work together? And then I find that there's a lot of buy-in when we go that route.
Nice. And then geographically, I know it says virtual, so this is like but just for people that can't see the video or something like that, like you're across the U.S., across the world.
Not across the world. I'm not going to the other side of the earth, but I know people. I can connect you with somebody. So yeah, all over America. About half my clients are close to me. They're in Boulder. Nobody's in Netherlands. I'm in Netherlands, Colorado. I'm just looking for my first client up here. There's like 600 people that live in town. But yeah, Boulder, Denver, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, kind of the Western Slope, Vail. Half of them are that, and then roughly half are virtual, because it feels like it's becoming more and more common. You've got a dispersed leadership team, and it's very costly, time, energy, money to gather the troops. So everybody flies into Phoenix, into Denver, into wherever they are. So there's a lot of receptiveness to doing a virtual session. Like, let's be really effective and efficient. And most people are like, I can't do that. Kill me. I like 8 hours on Zoom. A common kind of wrap up at the end of a session that I do virtually would be something like, I was prepared for disaster. I was ready to just like end it all before I came in here. But the time went fast and we got a ton of stuff done. And I actually could keep going. Like, that's a common response I hear from people. And then I travel sometimes, not too often, but I'll get on a plane. Sometimes I charge a little bit more. I like to keep it to 1 or 2 travel clients.
Got it. Okay. I thought I had a joke for the travel, for the getting on the plane. All right. Here's the ringer question, which is, someone just listened to this whole thing. And hopefully they got a lot out of this. Cause I think the one thing that I probably I did more poorly than I didn't do your background justice on this. And so like, I would encourage anybody listening to this, like, go look up Jake Wells and like look at the background, because like and I'm biased because I've lived through a lot of pains, a lot of scars, but I think the ones that have like lived through it are the ones that have some very unique perspectives to be able to bring to other businesses that are having similar challenges. So if someone just listened to this whole thing and said, holy crap, like, love Jake, I need some Jake in my life, I got to figure out how he can become my EOSI, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I am an accessible, real person that you could just pick up a phone and call if you want to. You could Google Jake Wells EOS, and I think my website would probably pop up. But you could email me, jake.wells@eosworldwide.com. That's probably good, right?
Sweet, let's do it, and I'll put a link in there. Jake, thank you. The time flies with this. Like, we're like already there. I appreciate you taking an hour, actually a couple hours at this point, because of all the pre-calls and fun emails out of your life to come on the show, share your journey. Yeah, man, thanks so much.
Thanks for the free-flowing, wide open conversation that we had. It was a lot of fun.
We went all over the place. I appreciate it. Thanks.